Hey, social studies kiddos. Great to be back with you this week. It's Mrs. Anderson from the White House. Let's dive right in here, okay? Because we have one of the most important achievements ever to come out of the ancient world right here, right now. It's called the Republic. So, this is the word I'm focusing on right here. Okay. It's also written right here. And take a look at the definition. It says, in a republic, citizens don't make the decisions, elected representatives do. So this is super important because it came out of ancient Rome. If you think back to Athens, Greece, they had a democracy. Demos means people, ruled by the people. So we had our first version of democracy that came out of Athens, Greece. And that idea of democracy where the people participate in government, that spread. It culturally diffused to Rome, except the Romans tweaked it, changed it, made it their own version of it, and that's really the version that we use. Athens had something called a direct democracy. We don't do that. Ain't nobody got time for that, to be honest with you. And here's why. In a direct democracy, people um, directly vote on every single issue. Now, in Athens, you could do that because it was only the free Athenian men. So when you really took out the women, the slaves, the children, the foreigners, you take all those people out. There's really not that many men. And that was pretty much their job because they had such a large slave population that kept the economy going. So they really could spend their days hanging out and voting on every single issue. We do not have time for that in the United States of America. We don't have the space for that in the United States of America, right? Teachers got to teach. Doctors got to doctor. Wegmans employees got to be Wegmans employees. The garbage employees have to take out the garbage and dispose of it in a safe way. Houses got to keep getting built. Like all of that stuff has to keep happening. We can't stop and make everything like pause in the United States of America every single time we got to vote on something. And we don't have the space. Like, where would we all go? Where would all the moms and dads and voters, right? All you have in the United States of America to vote is over the age of 18 and over, and a registered voter. So you're talking about millions of people. So what would happen with the kids? Right? We can't leave all the kids crazy home alone while we're all going to Washington, D.C. to vote on something, which is our nation's capital, or to Albany to vote on something, which is our New York State capital. So what we do is we elect representatives who then go on to vote the issues. So our elected representatives, that's their full-time job so that they can, be educated on every single issue. I'd love to tell you that I know everything about everything that's going on in the United States of America, but that's just not true. So how can I make an educated vote on every single issue? I can't. So instead, we vote for elected representatives who go on and they vote the issues. So when we have elections, and not just presidential elections, but elections from anywhere from the Board of Education, that's a vote that's coming up in Webster in every school district in New York, like really soon. So local elections all the way up to the national presidential election. So there's elections all over the place. And when we elect, what we're doing is we're electing representatives to go on and make those decisions for us. And that is how the Romans did it. So that's an important distinction. The Athenians, the Greeks, they did direct democracy. Rome, they had an indirect democracy. And the United States of America, we have an indirect democracy. We have a republic. How do you know? How can you remember? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. There it is, right there. Bam. So, republic, we got that idea from the Romans. And it's the foundation of life in the United States and government in the United States, and it's all about electing representatives. So, huge achievement, really important idea that came out of the Romans, but let's look at how Rome had it set it up. Because obviously, we don't have it set up exactly like Rome, because Rome started off as a city. One thing that's important to notice about Rome is that their government was constantly changing, and that was really to best fit the needs of the people. They started out as a monarchy. Remember King Remus, King Romulus? all that drama from last week. Well, they started out as a monarchy, and there were several kings that ruled after them, but eventually those kings started to get too powerful and abuse their power. So the Roman people knew what would happen next. The government would get overthrown, right? So instead of that happening, they switched the kind of government that they were using to protect the governments. So they ditched the idea of monarchy, and that's going to be important our next sort of piece of the puzzle, which is Julius Caesar, who actually tries to go back to being a monarchy, and the Republic does not want that. The people don't want that. Well, some of them kind of do. So more to come on that. But take a look at how this Roman Republic was set up. Okay, so we have two groups of people, and these groups of people are the ones that we're going to learn about specifically this week. So this is set up in a way that shows you we've got the patricians moving down this side of this flowchart, and then the plebeians are moving down this side of the flowchart. We're going to dive into life as a patrician and life as a plebeian this week. But the important thing for you to know is that this is the wealthy class. They only made up like 5 to 10% of the population. We usually say 10%, but you'll hear some videos that say it's as low as 5% of the population. Obviously, they have the lives of luxury and freedom and rights and privileges and money and land. I like to call them the very few with the lots and lots. The reason for this is they are the descendants or the ancestors or the family members of Rome's very first settlers. So you got to Rome first, you scooped up the land first, that all stays in your family, and those become the patricians, the very wealthy, elite aristocracy. Remember, aristo means best. That's a different kind of government that we've explored. And they just, this is where it was at. And the patricians made up the powerhouse in ancient Rome. So this right here, that's our Senate. This is where the power is coming from. So in order to be in the Roman Senate, you had to be a patrician. And of course, annoying, but you had to be a male. So when we're talking about direct versus indirect democracy, and we're looking at this idea of indirect democracy and electing our representatives, these are where they represent, or this is where the representatives came from. This is the power group. This is the group that advises the other two powerful positions inside Rome. So they were basically making all the decisions in Rome. And we have a Senate, right? In the United States of America, we have a Senate. So we took this idea from the Romans. But just notice, the only way you could be in the Senate is if you were born into the wealthy patrician class. These are our landowners and our businessmen, and they're just really living lives of luxury. And you're going to hear about that a little bit later. So in order to be in the Senate, you had to be a male patrician, and that's who's making the big decisions. Now, you could also, coming out of the Senate, you could be a consul or a dictator. And consuls were chosen, they were elected 2 times a year. No, that's all right. 2 of them were elected every year. Sorry about that. 2 of them were elected every single year, and they were a really, really powerful position inside Rome. They were responsible for running the daily affairs inside the actual city of Rome. And then the other really powerful position was appointed. And appointed is different from being elected. Appointed means you're chosen really quickly. Usually in Rome, it was because there was an emergency, some sort of, usually a war, right? But it was a limited term. You were only supposed to serve for 6 months and then be done. So both of these are very powerful positions, right? I mean, just to be born a patrician already meant powerful. Then you're a male, so you join the Senate, and you got to be senator for life. So super powerful, right? And then that was the advisory group to the consuls. and to the dictator. So super powerful, super powerful. They reported to the super powerful, council. So a lot of power, a lot of money, and a lot of elite status going on here. Now, obviously, that's different from the way we make up our participation in government, but this is still the same idea. Now, we have to, thank goodness, have some checks and balances in place. Originally, the plebeians really had nothing. This was 90 to 95% of the population. This is just like the regular people, the traders, the merchants, the craftspeople, the very, the a lot with the very little. Like there's a ton of them, but they don't have a lot of land or money or power or status, right? And you'll learn about their lives too. But the idea here is for a while they were left in the dark in terms of government participation. Eventually, they go on strike and leave the city, and basically they're like, hey, patricians, you want to do your own work, or you want to let us have a little say in government? And so they are given some participation. It's called the Tribune. It's made up of 10 plebeians who are able to attend Senate meetings. And what power they do have is to veto, which means I refuse to approve. Nope, not happening. Refuse to approve. So they did have the ability to kind of block any sort of laws that were really going to hurt the plebeians or something like that. So this is how the Roman Republic was set up. This week we're going to look more carefully at life as a patrician, life as a plebeian, and we'll talk about one of the most important famous dictators that ever gained power inside ancient Rome, Julius Caesar. He threatened the Republic because he was so powerful that he wanted to become dictator for life, which is basically a king, right? Which is not a representative form of government. That's absolute power forever. So he kind of threatens that Senate, that powerhouse group. And that's coming up too, okay? Have a great week. Thanks for tuning in.